Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, Connected Life friends. Before we get started, we got Abby hiding out in the background and our friend Ryan here. And we're going to talk with Ryan today about some fun stuff. But before we do, I want to have a quick conversation with all of you who feel like you've been touched or transformed by The Connected Life. I'm inviting you to jump in a journey with me. Coming up here in September, at the end of September, is my birthday. That's the 29th if you want to mark that on your calendar. But for my birthday and as a gift to me, I'm inviting you to be part of a bigger mission, which is to get my Tree of Life audiobook out there and get spread the message of it and get it just up in the rankings on Amazon. And so there's a couple vital things that we want to do to make that happen so that the message of transformation, the message of hope in this season can get out to the world. So here are a couple vital tips on how to do that. And then, you can listen to the episode and come back here and follow those tips. And a fun surprises we're talking about involved is the opportunity to win a session with me. A couple of lucky winners can win a session with me. So here it is. A couple vital steps. 1, mark your calendars to head to Amazon the week of August 17th through the 21st and purchase the Tree of Life audio book. And when you do that, if we get a bunch of our listeners to hit it all together as a collective mission, it'll start popping up and potentially we could get it into a bestseller on there. But maybe not. I don't know. So go and purchase a Tree of Life audiobook that day. Then step 2, head to social media and encourage 5 of your friends by tagging them in a post to go out and purchase the Tree of Life audiobook. All right. And tag me in it. You can tell them how amazing it sounds and everything. Or if you have actually read the book, you can tell them how awesome the book is and do these 3 hashtags. Hashtag the Tree of Life book, hashtag Okie, that's OAKIE, and hashtag Storytime. Now, for those 3 lucky winners at the end of the week are going to be chosen from social media at random who have tagged 5 people and done this. And those 3 people at random that I choose will get 50-minute sessions with me. And honestly, we can talk about anything. We can talk about my smelly armpits if you want. We can talk about your smelly armpits. We can talk about your kids who are driving you insane. We can talk about your spouse who you love so much but also can't stand. I don't know. Yeah, let's work something out in these 50 minutes. Whatever you want to do. Okay, also a free gift for everyone. So everyone during these dates, the 17th through the 21st, can head to www.treeoflifebook.com. And at treeoflifebook.com, you can fill out your name and your email address there, and it will automatically send to your email a copy of the ebook. Now, be sure to check your promotion folder and your spam folders because sometimes stuff gets dumped in there. And just want to say this as the last thing. Some of you, your thing is to go out and review things, do your written reviews and give your star ratings because that's just what you like to do. You have fun reviewing things on online. And so for all of you who are already planning on jumping on Amazon and doing that, I just want to say thank you to those people because you and I both know that like that type of stuff is super vital because it really tells people more about the book there so that people who don't know about it will really be enticed to grab something. So thank you in advance to all of you who are already planning on doing that. I really appreciate your efforts in that. So without further ado, here we go. Take it away, Abby.
Okay. I am so excited about this episode. I've been excited about this for a while because the stories we're going to share in this episode are really inspiring and profound. We're talking about how to get your childlike wonder back. And we're going to share, we have a special guest here. His name's Ryan Offer. Ryan,
Hello.
Welcome. So glad to have you here. And Justin and Ryan have a really beautiful way that their lives intersected. And it's one of the things that I think we love the most about when you live.
When you said that, I actually about started crying.
You did?
Tears hit me. Yeah. Sorry. I felt that just go.
Yeah. You're like, our lives did intersect and it was powerful.
Yeah.
Something when you live a connected life, since this is the connected life, what begins to happen is you have divine intersections where you have divine connections with people in divine moments where things are just right. And we just talked about your journey in creativity with the book on our last podcast, and how God brought every moment, every inspiration, every person, every detail into alignment in the right timing. And this is an overflow of that. Your relationship with Ryan was another relationship that came in the right timing. But it's really, truly a story of what the Tree of Life is about, which is about returning to childlike wonder. Everybody goes through pain. There's not one human on the planet who doesn't. And most of the ways that we protect ourselves pull us out of childhood. Most of the ways that we learn to survive pull us out of being a little kid who has endless hope and endless faith and feels lovable and feels worthy of connection and time and attention. And like so many of the experiences we've had have pulled us out of that. But we are our best self, our most authentic self, produces the most fruit and the most joy. Like when we are in our childlike wonder, we find people who love us that way, and we have play in our lives, and we have ideas that go without limitations, and we have beliefs, and we start to see life throw us forward the more connected to ourselves we are, which is
so real.
It's literally why we made this podcast, to help people reconnect to the things they've lost connection to. But so today we're going to jump into kind of talking about this beautiful story of Ryan and his journey of returning to childlike wonder, how that intersected with the Tree of Life and Justin, and how that also threw Justin forward into connecting and diving deeper into his own childlikeness. I wanted the audience to get to know you, so I thought we'd just start at the very beginning, when you were a kid. Tell us what you were like before 12.
Yes, before 12, life was out of control.
Oh.
I had no control over my emotions. I was diagnosed ADHD, like so many of us kids. But I had parents that were really engaged and connected in our lives. And so my mom especially did everything she could inside of that space. So Ritalin, things like that, any kind of drugs weren't an option. We tried every other option. But ultimately, just completely out of control, hyperactive. The thing for me was any kind of sugar that I'd get, processed sugar, would send me on a high. And I'd go crazy, and I didn't know it. It was just me. I was just being me.
Right.
And then something would usually happen. I'd break something or, kick a soccer ball, and it happened to always hit the girl.
Right in her face.
Right in her face. That was somehow, I was pretty talented at that.
Life. Great soccer aim.
Yeah, it was amazing.
When it doesn't count.
Amazing what I could do. So, but then the sugar would wear off, and I would just crash into depression. So I just there was never anything that was just even.
Stable.
And just some context of my parents. My parents are conservative, Christian, very godly, loved the Lord, but lived in a very protected environment where things were going to be orderly and perfect, and we've got it under control. And then I came along.
And you are just out of control.
You were the friggin' wrecking ball.
Yes.
You were the thing that grew them. So tell us, what did it feel like inside? Did you have shame when you were growing up?
Yeah, Justin and I have talked a lot through this, and I was clueless. I just didn't have any connection to my presence, myself. Everything just happened, and I just did. There was never what would happen if I do this?
Right.
Everything was I just did whatever I was doing.
It was very impulsive.
Yeah. So I had no thought of what was happening in my surroundings or anything like that. So that my whole childhood I remember very little about the childhood in the sense of connecting to things around me. All I remember is things only affecting directly to me, which was a lot based on emotion.
Yeah.
Right.
So you had these extreme emotional ups and downs, and relationally with kids, what did that look like growing up like that?
Well, I didn't know this as much from, my parents would say things like, you would never fit in. And of course I knew I didn't fit in.
Right.
There was something clearly wrong with me. And then on top of it.
So you knew as a kid there was something wrong with you.
Yes, not only that, because obviously I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't put words to what was wrong with that, but it drove me to being very suicidal because look at if I can't control myself, I can't do this stuff, I don't want to live.
Oh man.
And then there was something wrong in school. I couldn't get good enough grades no matter how hard I tried. I was always an outstanding student that worked really hard, but I'd work 3-4 times harder than anybody else, and you'd have teachers and they're trying to be kind that would say, in essence, if you just work a little harder.
Oh man.
And that creates, if I go back into that, it's a painful experience growing up.
So
real painful. And what's interesting is that kind of what you're articulating is I was definitely had an immense amount of shame, but I wasn't connected to the reality of that shame that I was feeling. The only thing that was really a point that we could point towards was I was really suicidal. In the sense of like, I know that there was pain about something going on inside of my environment, but as a kid, I was just doing life and not really sure what was happening.
Yeah,
for me
something
internally.
was wrong with me, and I couldn't fix it, and I couldn't fit in, and I couldn't be perfect, and I couldn't measure up to the standards that my parents required. And in reality, the world required those standards, and I couldn't meet those standards.
Right. So you would probably feel like you didn't belong and super powerless and hopeless that you'd ever belong.
Yeah.
So at the same time, how old are you when your mom starts getting sick?
So she'd been sick, as much my whole life growing up. So, but she got progressively worse.
Okay.
And a significant thing happened in her life. We went into missions. We lived overseas, moved to Germany, and some of the environmental pollution things would affect my mom physically. She'd get paralyzed. And
you said that so casually. She'd get paralyzed.
Her muscles would
just
paralysis on her muscles.
Yeah.
Symptom.
And of course I was clueless. We just this is how things work. You don't know any better.
It's your normal.
It's my normal. And we moved to Germany, and back then in the 80s, they didn't have a smog check, and there was a lot more pollution. We lived on a busy street, and my mom just got way worse. And so the doctors tried to help her, and basically she was allergic to so many medication. They gave her something that was alcohol-based, and her heart dropped to 40 beats per minute, and they said, we can't do anything for you. You got to rush back. Wow. So that was the triggering thing that all of a sudden things became real. My parents left Germany with my youngest sister. My sister, that's 17 months younger than me, were left in Germany.
You and your sister were left in Germany?
We're left in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And of course there was a good community there.
Sure.
That, were taking care of us. But my parents and, because my mom couldn't travel by herself.
Wow.
So they get to the airport, they go to give her a ticket, take her off, and they said, no, she can't travel by herself. So they take off, and
so whoever was in the car had to go.
Yeah. That was it.
Wow.
So, and of course, I thought it was great. Like, woo!
Mom, Dad's gone.
We're free.
I can break whatever I want.
Totally. So the poor families that took care of us. Yeah. I don't know if we were on our best behavior, but
that's funny. So tell us what happened with her.
So that started a long journey, and that's what brought us here to Northern California, where the doctors in San Diego, where we lived and grown up, said, we can't help you either. Your best bet is to try to get away from any pollutants.
Wow.
So basically she just couldn't handle anything that was, glues in your car or homes. We'd have to buy homes that were older. We had air filters everywhere. And this is back in the 80s.
Wow.
Not many people were even paying any attention to this.
No one was conscious.
No. Nowadays,
anything.
we we have low viscosity, from paint that's
totally non-toxic.
We totally get it today.
There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, but then we didn't. So we moved up on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and that started a journey for my mom in her journey through healing.
Tell us what happened in her journey healing and how that ended up affecting you?
So we ended up moving to the ranch, which was a great place for me to connect as a kid because it just had so much freedom. But
talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a ranch that it's a camp, family camp. So they'd have families that would come, and there's ropes course and this lake and a super swing and this blob and pools and horses and just it's amazing. So as a kid who's 10, 11, 12, this was just a great place to live and just play.
And it was a place where you could go play and be as crazy and quote unquote destructive almost, and really be away from, you're not really hurting anything, so to say. So it's kind of probably a sense of relief for you in that space.
Oh, I was just complete freedom. We had, 400 acres of just don't burn the forest down, son.
Yeah. So you're like, I can't break anything here. I just can't light a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the relief, the relief from the shame that you're unaware of, like, oh, this whole season, there's nothing that I can do that's overly destructive. I can be as wild as I want. I don't even have to feel the weight of the shame or the...
Well, and again, because I wasn't connected, I didn't really know.
Right. That was the back, though,
I just have fond memories. So when I look back to other 8 times in my childhood, there was a lot of negative feelings. Here, the memories are all good.
Just feel happy.
I'm like, well, why? And I just was starting to think through that, in the last few months. Like, oh yeah, I just have great memories, and it's because I couldn't break things. I couldn't mess things up. All of a sudden, the standard wasn't there for me anymore that I had to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
And you take away that standard, and I could be freely me in my mess.
Yeah. Okay, so you move there, and what happens with your mom?
So the Lord takes my mom on a journey, and she connects with Father in a very personal way. And in essence, she gets just set free from fear.
Wow.
That's the core of it.
Wow.
And that totally revolutionized our family, changed everything. And it translated into healing for us kids.
Well, can you start with, how did it affect your mom?
So physically, I talked about the paralysis of this thing. So she got into her deep sadness, soul. I've heard you guys talk through this, and she was basically in bed, and she had to say, so she had wanted to be a missionary, wanted to serve God, wanted to do all these things, passionate heart. She loved the Lord, but here she's in her bed, can't do anything. So how can she possibly serve God or please Him or do things that would, when she can't do anything?
Yeah.
So she had to go through this. Am I going to be okay if this is
the rest of my life?
Really detoxing every level of performance at some level. It's having to detox. And
do I have value for what I can do, or am I valuable for being alive?
Yes. And my parents are A-driven. They know how to accomplish a lot of stuff.
Right.
They can really knock things out and get things done.
Yeah.
And she had to lay that down. So that was her journey to walk through that. And, I'm still learning from that process where she came to peace with, okay, God, I am settled and at peace here, even if I have to be paralyzed in this bed for the rest of my life.
And has she been paralyzed for the rest of her life?
So obviously what happened is fear we talk about paralysis. Anyway, she's so fearful.
Yeah.
It would paralyze her.
Wow.
Physically.
Actually cause neurological and then physical problems that came from it. And as she overcomes this fear, her body gets liberated.
Yeah. So it would break down her immune system. So she was kind of like the person that would say you need to live in a bubble. Otherwise you could catch a sickness. Only it wasn't those things. It was just her immune system from the pollutants. Well, your body detoxes that stuff all the time. It does an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just totally caught in fear, your body breaks down. It can't do it. And she got into the limit of what her body could handle, and that was it. So as she gets set free from fear, which was just complete deliverance from that, and some prayers to things, truth. Back then, Neil T. Anderson was huge and came up into Northern California and had taught a lot on who she is in Christ and her identity. So she started to reprogram her identity.
Wow.
And that came out. And then all of a sudden, it was night and day over 6 months or so.
Wow.
Totally free. And then basically since then, she has been completely powerful and strong. And then we went and did humanitarian aid work over in Kosovo and Bosnia. And
so she got her life back.
Oh, not just a life back. She had so much. So part of the thing too, she said, just get an idea for those of you who really are fearful and paralyzed by the same fear. Her biggest fear was, she was moving to Germany that first time. She said, I can't ever leave the U.S.
Right.
And this is Germany. I mean, this was like a real nice place to live. And she was totally terrified of that. But she did it, and it about killed her.
Oh, right. Totally.
So here was this, hey, I'm trusting, I'm stepping out, I'm doing these great things that are going to really impact, and everything fell apart.
Yeah. Well, how did that then, as she gets, there's a transition with her, with letting go of her fear. Her body gets healed. What ends up happening for you then?
So she gets healed. We go back down to the doctors that had been working with her, and they gave her a complete bill of health. Clean. Wow, she was totally fine. They said there was absolutely nothing. They couldn't explain it.
Wow.
Completely free from it.
Amazing.
Back then, they were calling it environmental illness.
Right.
I don't know what they'd call it today, but
right.
Anyway, completely set free.
Incredible.
So then they started praying over us kids.
Wow.
The same thing. And so we went through a very simple prayer for myself, and my parents basically said, in essence, this is how I heard it as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So do you want to be able to eat sugar?
Yeah. They're like, yes, I do. Absolutely.
Because we've gotten so good at reading all the labels, and we were eating,
absolutely.
Everything organic. And, it was much more difficult back then.
Right.
And so, do you want to eat sugar? Yeah,
yes.
Of course I do. And so it was sort of a dedication of my life to the Lord in a sense, because I still really wanted to please God. But we walked through that space, and my parents just did a simple prayer over me, and literally that prayer changed everything for me.
Wow.
And from completely being hyperactive and absolutely no control, in fact, that was the last time that I attempted to run away and made it through a day. And the only things that kept me coming back is I knew my parents just had so much love for me.
Wow.
But literally it was, probably days after that when my parents had prayed for us and completely set free. And I didn't have any of the hyperactivity anymore, complete control over my emotions.
Wow. So that is first of all, that's just a beautiful story. I'm really glad that you shared it. It's so hopeful for everybody.
Right there. That you could stop on and just be like, oh my gosh.
Yes. Very, very powerful. But the interesting thing is, and I love this because this is what happens so often, is talk about what emotional decisions you made after that.
This is what I've been unpacking. So I made these decisions. All of a sudden I had this superpower to control my emotions.
Yeah.
And emotions were completely unsafe.
Yep.
They hurt you. They're bad.
They hurt other people.
In my environment, they're bad. They hurt other people. Like, there's nothing good about emotions.
Right.
When I was 12 years old. And so I made this decision that I am never going to be out of control again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that's the kind of decision I was making, but we ended up going back to Germany my senior year of high school. And some of the same students that were there at the boarding school that we were at said literally, "You're so calm."
Totally. Like,
Who is this person?
I killed that 12-year-old. He's dead to me.
And I didn't realize I had changed that much.
Sure.
Other than I had more control over life.
Right.
So high school, I turned to logic and reason, and I went into computers. I wasn't good at school, but I was pretty good with computers. And so that became my salvation.
Yes.
And in a very good way, it became my protector.
Right.
And it led me faithfully for many, many years. But it took me on a journey then of starting to take control. It was safe. It was predictable. Everything was black and white.
Right.
And when you live in the world as a programmer, literally you have control, you have a lot of power, and everything is black and white.
Yes.
There's only
Feels
one
like
and a zero.
very safe place for you.
And you can pursue that, and you can live that for a long time. And I thought I was doing pretty good, and I was in control, and I had everything worked out.
Awesome. So that leads us to about the point when you and Justin's paths begin to intersect. Yes. So tell us where you were at and why you reached out to Justin.
Yeah. So I connected up to Justin. I'm realizing I don't necessarily have all things together like I thought. My wife had gone through a difficult season and pretty much a nervous breakdown. And we, at that point, her father had passed away several years ago, and we just thought that was the unraveling of all of that. And I'll be real honest, I thought she's the one with the problems.
As everybody always does.
And I've got it all together. I mean, man, I can work hard. I just was busting. I knew how to
grind,
really grind and
shove your emotions down. You know?
So I was working easily 90 hours a week for the last 3 years and at least 80 hours for the last 5 years.
Wow.
And I had it together, right? We could do this stuff. My wife breaks down. She walks through and gets a breakthrough and kind of walks through that a little bit. And then I realize, oh crap, I'm just as messed up. Oh, in fact, my screwed upness is what's probably caused most of her breakdown.
I'm the source of it all.
Totally.
Yeah. So we had started a company 5 years ago, and all this aspiration, like get these things done. I'd worked for some nonprofit organizations, and we just didn't really get the things done I wanted to get done.
So you're like, I'll start
Let's launch on my own, and we did some pretty awesome things. We've got all of our audio books that we've produced have over 3 billion listens,
which is unbelievable.
It's huge. It's a big number. I don't even think about that number.
Is insane.
3 billion.
Billion listens.
Yeah, I stopped counting after that. I don't even know how to measure it.
Right, totally.
Is there a Z now?
Yeah.
Billions.
So really good stuff on paper. It looks really good, but we were dying, and family got the end of everything. So my wife and I were connected. She's like, okay, I'll take the family, household, we'll do that. You get the business going. And it just all started to implode. We couldn't do it. And, things had to change.
Yeah.
So that was when I'm reaching out to Justin and saying, I need some help. So we'd gotten some business coaching on the business side of things, which, worked with some identity things. But I thought I had it together. So, we just need to fix a few things here and we're set. So then connect with Justin and make this phone call. And
well, I initially got an email from you, and I was at the crossroads where I was cutting back. I've been cutting back all of my one-on-one stuff for all these other projects that I'm trying to conquer in life. And so I'm usually just turning people to other directions. And in this last season, it was about a couple of years ago, I kind of poked around at the idea of recording my book, doing the audio, and then it didn't feel like the right timing, and had a sad situation where the person who was open to doing it actually passed away, but I didn't feel right about.
Well, that's a closed door.
That's very close.
Yeah.
He would actually laugh about that.
He had a great sense of humor.
Yeah, he had a great sense of humor. But then, so I just kind of waited a while, and I actually started dialoguing with another friend of mine at the time, and that didn't feel like, I was like, no, I really would like to do it with him. He has a great heart, but it's still not it. So I kept following that gut intuition of I'll just wait. But something kept igniting inside of me, like, the time is coming. You're supposed to do this book.
Oh yeah. You started talking about it for a few months, and you're like, I know that it's right, but I'm just not sure.
I don't know how to do it or where to go do it. And I know that I'm feeling I'm not supposed to do it over here with my friend. And so I don't know. And my whole journey has been one of trust.
Yes.
I'll just trust when the timing is right, a resounding yes will hit me with clarity. And so I got this email, and I was about to forward it on, and I see at the bottom your signature and said recorded word. And I was like,
you were about to send it on because you weren't taking clients.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I just catch that, and I thought,
interesting.
Recorded word, what does that mean? And I end up asking a friend of mine who publishes books, do you know anything about this guy that does this? Or what does he do? Or what exactly is that? Have you heard about this? And he went on to tell me a little bit more about your story. And I went, this is very interesting. And that initiated an exchange of me basically saying, like, hey, I don't know if you'd be into the idea of doing some form of an exchange or something like that, and me helping you and you helping me out. Don't know if that's in your ballpark. I actually don't want to meet with people anymore. I'm cutting back on that. And it was interesting because you kind of had a similar scenario on your end.
Yeah, because we were also being in this space where we were shifting a little bit, cutting back, kind of figuring out what we were going to do with our studio here that we have. And, you know, so then
we don't want to do more audiobooks. This is kind of the last one.
We're kind of closing down perhaps what we're doing here. And I'm like, okay, maybe we could just do this exchange and see. And
it could be the last hurrah for both of you.
And it was interesting because when we sat down, we ended up sitting down to have a conversation further about what we were doing, and I lit up because I could see that we were both very good at what we both did, and it felt like a peer and a partner where there was this peer exchange where it's like we could draft off each other's strengths in this next season. And it just felt very fun, and some of what you're needing felt so simple to me. What you needed on my end of
I know how to help you.
I know how to help you with that. We can get to that.
Yep.
And so it actually really excited me after that first conversation of moving forward.
But let's talk about the reason it was so easy for you to know how to help him get unlocked is because you've gone on that journey with yourself and 4,000 clients.
Totally.
And then you wrote a book about that exact process.
Yeah, totally. You wanted me to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, just like how you knew, because I've gone.
Oh, I mean, I think that for me, I'm looking at how you were living in your logic, and I was like, oh, he just hasn't been given the right permission, and he hasn't had maybe the dots put together for him of like, oh no, it's actually really simple. You just need to go here and here, and you're lacking love for yourself that you're not aware of back here.
Here's a map.
I could see off the bat real quickly the abandonment of the child within, and I'm like, if we can get him to see the child, get over his judgment towards that child, whatever that is.
You're talking about the 12-year-old and under.
The 12-year-old and under. I could see that inside of Ryan's experience where he was living in logic, it was only because there was an abandonment of that childlike innocence and wonder in his history. And I'm like, oh, if we can highlight that and get you to that, this will be a simple but very maybe taxing as far as like the work.
Simple from Justin.
Yes, exactly.
So freaking hard for Ryan.
Don't let me minimize the price you were about to pay to go on this journey.
Why don't you share, Justin, with some of the first homework you gave Ryan?
Yeah. So one of the things that part of the journey of connecting back into our childlikeness, and also you had everything so structured. Like, here is my clear control structure space, and everything has to be unto a purpose.
Efficient, productivity, don't waste any time.
Get things done.
Yes.
And so I was like, what can I do that's very inefficient that also makes him connect to his childlike wonder?
Makes me twitch.
So I was like, you know what? Legos are awesome. They're fun. You're going to go buy a Lego set. You're going to build that Lego set, and then you're going to destroy that Lego set. Waste of time, waste of money, destruction, chaos.
Just for the sake of the experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what you felt when he gave you that homework and what that was like for you?
Well, yeah. So I'm still working a lot of hours.
Yeah.
We're still hustling, trying to get this going, trying to make this work. And I'm like, I'm taking time out and meeting with Justin. You know, we're going to talk about this exchange of time. So that's going to book my studio out and these other things.
More work.
And then I'm going to just waste time
on top of that,
putting Legos together. Not even like I've got 3 young kids, and I'm not even going to do it for the purpose of connecting with them. This is
that's funny and sad all at the same time.
Yes. So, but I was a little bit intrigued. Like, what would it be like to have permission to just do things like I did as a kid again and break something and not get reprimanded or get scolded or have the feeling like, well, that's gone now. You can't replace it. You've just destroyed. Yeah, it's gone.
That regret and that grief of that loss. And that was the other element inside of it too for me when I gave you that was like, here's a guy who had so much shame about
breaking things.
Yeah. Yep. Well, because you break it, we didn't have a lot of money, so that was it.
Right.
So protect at all costs. Don't let anybody else use it, because I had so many experiences. You let someone use it and they break it, and that's it.
Yes.
It's gone.
So what happened?
Okay, so you build. What do you get? What do you do?
So I go out. I find this Lego set. Ended up just finding someone on Amazon that was a Ferrari Testarossa car, and it was a cheap set, but I had a poster when I was a kid on the wall. Like this part was red, so it was great. So I get it and take the time to put it together, and it was fun. I was nervous though because I had so many other things I needed to get done. It was not being productive, but I'm going to trust Justin. And we had already been worked on a lot of things about coming up, giving permission and talking to little Ryan and just allowing him to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, you start a company and you start working that many hours, there's no room for play. There's no room for vacation. There's no room for fun. And of course that just trickles out over and spills over into your family.
Right.
They're not having any fun either.
Yep.
So we put it together, and then, I kept it there for a while before destroying it because it looked perfect. It was right there. that was some satisfaction in that, to be able to see that. But I finally got around to destroying it, and we were rushed, and so I couldn't think of anything creative, no bottle rockets or anything to stick inside. So anyway, I needed to clean up the mess afterwards, so I just went in the garage, grabbed a bat, and I got my son to videotape it in slow motion.
Love it.
Ran up there and just destroyed it, just shattered it to pieces. It went all over the garage, everywhere.
Full explosion.
What did your son think?
Oh, my son so he's 6.
Yeah.
And he's holding the camera as best he can, and he has no idea what's going on. Like, Dad doesn't ever destroy anything. He's careful with his time. In fact, he's always getting upset with me if I'm not doing things perfect either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's internalizing this and videotaping it, and so yeah, totally destroyed it, and we get to just start picking it up, and so it's kind of a little bit of like, wow, and then now I got to clean up this mess. That's all over the garage. So cleaning up the pieces, again, a waste of time, all this stuff, and so that's where I left it until we had met again a few more times, and I just had all these broken pieces.
Yeah.
And then what?
This is such a good allegory.
Yeah, so that would have been enough in itself to just waste time for the pure sake of the quote-unquote enjoyment or the childlikeness of me being me. Yeah. Permission to be me, curious. What would it feel like to smash a Lego set with a bat? And so anyway, I take those pieces and I start thinking, what if I could put this together? We found a lot of the pieces. I wonder if we could do this. So I get on the kitchen table, my son's there this time, and now I'm having him help me with it. And so we put it together piece by piece, and we're missing a few pieces, and he goes back out to the garage. Oh, Dad, I found another piece.
Oh.
And so it took a while.
To find all the pieces?
To find the pieces. Well, in fact, just yesterday I found another piece. I'm like, I was missing that one piece.
That's great.
It was some of the body part that needed to be on it. Anyway, I was able to put it back together, and I just felt Father say, see, I can put it back together.
Come on.
And the only part that was really destroyed was a bit of the chassis underneath that was bent, and it didn't affect anything. Like literally, I hit that thing so hard. And the guys, of course, the Lego man's head came off, and his arm, and his wrist. Like you have to tear that thing apart to get it to go like that. And yet I was able to get it all back together. And so you can waste time, you can make mistakes. I can put it back together. I've got lots of time. And even now, as we're still finding pieces months later, there's still like this patience, like, oh, I found another piece. I can stick it in there.
And it's like kind of an adventure. Like every time you get it, you're like, oh.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. There's nothing really too far gone that can't be put back together. And that's so powerful to take away from that allegory. So a life lesson for you and for your kids as you watch that happen.
And for us.
Yeah, and for us as well.
Do you want to talk about the next homework you gave them?
Yeah, I gave you the homework to go pop popcorn and have a popcorn fight in the house with the kids, because I'm really part of getting you reconnected to your childlike wonder was not just having you do personal events that would connect to the kid inside, but also have you connect to your children, so that there was you being able to bring them into your world and you enter into their world and begin to spark something there.
Yeah, I'm imagining people watching my Facebook feed, Instagram feed going, he's lost it. Because each post was me doing something that was just not Ryan.
Not you.
Not what people knew, other than when I was a kid. And so we go pop popcorn, and I create I don't know how many bags, that we did pots of it. And we got it all out and got my kids in there. And of course, I made the mistake of putting lots of oil all over it. Didn't think this all through.
No.
But we just make a mess in the kitchen,
just
of course,
everywhere,
and just have fun. It just goes absolutely everywhere and makes this total mess. And then, of course, on top of it, realizing the floor is now all greasy everywhere. It's getting in our clothes. Now all of a sudden, I'm like, your dress is going to get messed up, and all these things. But the kids just had an absolute blast. I mostly had a blast, but as soon as it became a mess, I started like tensing up.
You could feel all of the the rules and the logic and the adult parts.
Everything within me was fighting with, this is not right.
This is not right.
And you're progressively having to release that control. And that's something for so many parents that I've given them homework like this. Like I gave one parent the homework to have a wall where their kids get to paint all over the entire wall in their bedroom, whatever they want, as long as they want. And that just like snapped them in really great ways, but it had to break their control. And then eventually together they repainted the wall. Mm-hmm. But together they cleaned the mess up. It was a year down the road, and the kid got to have that wall, and they got to go, that's beautiful that the kid gets to make a mess on a wall and connect with the messiness and let go of it. So, but control is one of the hardest things for us to break as adults.
Because it says it's protecting us, and it's the only way for us to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Totally.
So after, did you feel more connected to your kids through that?
Yes. Well, definitely. I mean, that definitely connected. Then there's one more thing that this wasn't homework, but we came back from one of the sessions that I had with you, and I was feeling just really alive.
Love that.
I mean, I was just so alive. I mean, I was speeding home and racing around a corner and like just like a kid, having fun again. And I came home and I came in and I was telling my wife, my daughter, who's 9, just being alive. Like, what if we in this like, I was coming alive.
You
like
were
this
dreaming.
Little window was opening up, this small window, because it closes so quick. I'm like opening it up. I was in that moment connected, and I just have this spur moment thing of like just totally ripping my shirt, and out of nowhere, and so I tear it off. And I get my daughter to hold the camera this time. And of course, in slow motion, it's great. Like,
just favorite shirt, Hulk Hogan movement. If anyone used to watch Hulk Hogan, where he's like ripping his shirt off.
It couldn't have ripped better. It was just like the perfect
really did.
Magic.
That was a good video. I like that.
And my daughter, who's 9, who's older and be able to see more of the stuff, she is the one who was really impacted. And she just asked, like, Dad, what are you doing? But she had no reference for this at all. Mm-hmm. And that's when I knew like this stuff was changing, and that I was shifting, and that life was coming back into our home. And this was just that innocence, that little boy coming alive again, and life becoming a part of our family again that had died so long ago when we were just hustling and working.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of people put life off. They're like, once I get this done, then I will live. But what happens is when we put life off for a long time, other things die, and they're not, it takes time to resurrect them.
It really does. And there's an element of like, you think about the 5 years in the making, and your daughter's 9, and then you've got a 6-year-old, and how old's the
3-year-old?
3-year-old. Yep. And you think about the time that you put in that, and it's like, there's potentially a lot of moments that you didn't get to participate in that. And now you get to like get those moments. But if that didn't get interrupted, there would have been the next 10.
Oh, totally.
That could have gone by. And for a lot of people, that happens is that they get lost in these cycles and not living. And then they go surviving the very key things, the things that matter the most, which are these relationships, our children, our friends around us. We bypass them. And we go, wait, I missed all that. I cannot get that back.
And a lot of it is, again, because we think that it's the way to survive.
Yes.
And very few people actually realize that a popcorn fight or ripping your shirt off and connecting with your wife and your daughter, like those things don't have to take 500 hours.
No.
Like you can still be busy and work hard and
drop
engage.
play into the experience.
Yeah, but when you put all the investment and the shoulds, and we're building a company. You have to do this, right? You have to spend the next 3 to 5 years hustling to make it happen, right? That's what you have to do.
And you feel guilty if you're not.
You're totally guilty. And when my wife is on the same page, yes, I need that security too. You go hustle. I'm fully got your back.
Yep.
We're both in this. We're both agreeing with lies, saying there's not enough time.
Right.
You can't spend time on this because if you don't hustle and make these investments, then we'll never get that return and you'll lose all of it.
Totally.
And while you're losing your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yourself.
Oh, yeah. That died years ago, right?
Yeah.
There's no room for you. It was just keep pushing through.
Right.
Yeah. And that, go ahead.
Did you want to say?
I was just going to say that's unfortunately how a lot of us live.
Yeah.
It's a very large majority of people are living that way.
Now, there was another thing my husband planned. I loved watching him. He got so happy planning it for you. Why don't you talk about that and what that experience was like?
Yeah. So this guy tricks me and says, I've got I got this project I want you to help me with. I'm like, oh, I'm busy. I don't have the other things.
I talk to you all the time about how busy I am.
And I think I was like, I need you to say yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I first gave you choice, and then I said something about I was going to make you say yes or something. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, you made it sound like it was some sort of project that you needed help with. And I was learning to put up boundaries, and I'm like, okay, I can say no, to even Justin. But then you like, no, you need to say yes, or I'll make this a homework assignment. I think is what you said. Totally. So anyway, you arrange things, you call my wife and you set things up, and basically I come over and connect and come into this room, and you've got pizza, you've got presents sitting on the table here, and you say, this is all about Ryan. And of course it breaks right into me. And I mean, I'm an adult. I'm 44 years old. Like, this is also, what are you doing with my time? Okay, I've got friends. We go do this and we go hang out. But there's not like, I'm just going to carve out my busy schedule and for time with Ryan. Yeah. And we're going to now blow it and waste time. So we'll eat. We all got to eat. So that's efficient. We got to at least do that. Everybody's got to eat. But then we're going to waste the next couple hours. And I didn't know what we were doing. Just that there's these gifts sitting here on the table.
Yeah. So I purposely too, I got your favorite, I asked your wife and found out what your favorite food was, because one of the things is I looked at your childhood and there was the element of not necessarily feeling celebrated by other kids and the engagement of that. And there was such compassion inside of my heart for the little boy and his history, where I was like, I want him to have an experience where it gets made about him. It's not even he has to put the birthday party on or the special moment on for himself. It's somebody wants to create it for him. And so I that's why I got the pizza for you. And then I got these special gifts, which you can.
Yeah. Tell. Well, and I got to be honest, in my mind, the thing that's in my mind is, oh, he does this for everybody.
No, he doesn't.
This is totally him. This is all fake. He's just doing this because you have an exchange and he owes it to you. Yeah, this is it. And he's really good at what he's doing.
It's working.
But he's using it to make me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to receive it. Yet you still cut through with such an extravagant act with that. And okay, so the piece of it is we open up the first present and it's another Lego set. Another three car Lego set that we could work in. So he lets me choose, the best one. And I think we picked the ones that were our favorites anyway. So I got a Porsche 911. And yeah, we just wasted the next 2 hours, I think.
And what was delightful is because I didn't have an agenda for it, because I was trying, like, literally my goal was, how do I love him well? That was my question inside of me. How can I love Ryan well? As I went into it, is my compassion rose up even further your history. And so I'm sitting down there and we had some actual talk about life, and some of it was deep and some of it was just surface level. And then some of it was just quietness.
That was the best part.
We just built together in that space. And it was a toy. There was zero productivity in the ways of what we think is productive, but it was so deeply heart productive. the purpose inside of it was love.
Even while I'm trying to come up with rationale in my mind why I should push this away and reject that love coming in. I got really good at that. In fact, I'm still really good at figuring out in my mind the reasons why that's not authentic.
What was the emotion you walked away with when we walking away from that night?
Just feeling loved.
Yeah,
feeling connected, feeling loved and connected in a way that someone would be willing to also waste their valuable time.
Yeah.
I mean, I even said to you, please thank Abby. I don't know what you were doing, but for carving out that time.
One of the places inside of me as a kid that felt most inadequate was with regards to time, especially time with my dad. And so I've had the same pain point when males, especially male authorities or masculine authorities probably, would give me their time. I was tormented and twisted inside, and I was really waiting for the ball to drop that I had taken too much from them, and that the love that they had to give was then going to be removed because I've now become a big burden. And so I understood and have a deep understanding for that emotion. I know the buttons that push. So I had compassion as you're going through the different emotions inside of it, and very much could I identify with it. And I love that I got to be part of giving that gift of time back and giving it with the purity of love when I didn't feel like it was something that I got in a necessary way as a kid. So it was a gift to me to get to participate in that.
That's the beautiful thing is we get to, the gift in life is we can give away all of the things we never got.
Yeah.
Which is really powerful.
Absolutely.
So you're going on this journey and you're learning how to waste time, have fun, connect to yourself, actually spend time in relationships, not being efficient, not having everything perfect, not having everything be controlled and scheduled. So that's like the beginning of your journey and connecting to your emotions again, probably.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, and the piece too of this that's taking place as this transitions, obviously, we have this exchange.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just an exchange of monetary value that we're, I'm going to hire you, you're going to hire me, and we're good and professional. It was also the journey in this book. It was also the journey in watching Justin model things that I had never experienced. And by you becoming vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you connecting then with a voice coach and becoming vulnerable in that space, and then me walking in that space where when I'm normally in the studio, we're on a tight schedule and it's just like to get in and out, in and out, in and out. And here we're like, okay, we're going to create some space for that and create some space to just kind of center ourselves, spend some time praying before and seeing what comes out of it. So that was the other big piece of that relationship is we exchanged much more than just the monetary or the product. Yes, you have an audiobook product that's amazing.
That's incredible.
Yes. But it was what was happening, like you were saying, when you're saying yes to trust. Even with Luis in that room, the organic life that came out of that was not a way I've ever done business.
Wow.
Yeah, tell us what it was like for you in that process.
Yeah, you made mention of the voice coach. So I ended up, at the same time as this happened, someone else happened to email me who I also had a signature on their thing that they did voice stuff. And I said, hey, you want to do an exchange with them? And Jessica Souza came into my world, and she did voice coaching, but it's not the classical voice coaching where it's just technical details inside of your voice. Here she talks about the voice as your whole body and your whole experience, and getting down to where did you lose your voice, because if you can connect back into the places where you lost your voice, everything else will flow from there. And so for couple months prior to leading up to that, I had to enter into and engage in this deeply vulnerable space of being in this room with Jess once a week, where she would get me to connect with some of my deepest pains and stuff that I haven't even I've processed so much in my life, but all of a sudden I'd have these ahas of like, oh, I forgot about this. I lost my voice here, and I got my voice ran over here in this place, and I got shut down here. And it started rewiring me long term. Like if this book never even got, the audio never got done, and I just got that part, oh my gosh.
It'd be worth it.
It'd be worth it, because I walked out with a deeper level of power and confidence from my space with her. But I'm engaging these very vulnerable things, not only with my emotions, but also with me reconnecting with my sounds. My whole childhood, I did a lot of voices.
Yeah.
I would replicate voices I watched on TV, and it was so fun for me. And I wanted to go into film school so that I could become an actor. And that got I went to film school. I laid down all those dreams, and I never fully got to engage that part of myself. And so this starts to come awake and come alive in that space with her. And then when I do enter into the space with you, I was very transparent and very vulnerable, even with the idea that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing the best I know how. I'm not overly prepared. I definitely prepared my emotions, and I've gone through investigating some of the characterizations here, but we're going to discover some of them as they're happening in this space. And I even said, I'm giving you permission to partner with me in this space, not just do the technical details, but hear it with me and be a partner with me as we find out, did that work? Did that not work? Let's try something different. But inside of it, I remember even staying fully vulnerable to the concept of, as we stepped into I think it was the first day of it, I was like, Ryan, I think I'm having these emotions of performance where I feel like if I don't do this well, I'm going to fail you. It feels very reminiscent of emotions connected to my own dad. And from the get-go, I was like, my standard will be me talking very vulnerably and openly about my process, because I believe that the journey of this book is not about the book, the outcome of the book. It's about the lives intersecting, my life coming alive and other people coming alive in the midst of it. And so I was willing to take everything that I could and extract it out of it. And what was beautiful is that you chose so into it at this point. Like, the Ryan that you talk about, just performance-based, did not show up in that space. You showed up with compassion. You showed up with kindness. You showed up with a full engagement, support. You truly chose into being part of a team inside of that space. And I had never had, outside of Abby and I, when we do stuff, I'd never had that type of team and really that type of team interaction where it was about me accomplishing something and someone jumping on my team in that space and walking that out with me. And so I was deeply, deeply in gratitude inside of it.
Why don't you talk about how you'd have to find the voices?
Yeah.
Like the journey of that.
Yeah. Well, part of it was, did you also want me to share about how I ended up almost naked in your booth at one point?
Well, yes, go ahead. Interesting. It's a good lead-in for a story. Tell me about it.
That really has nothing to do with anything, but it was about clothes making noises. And at some point, just because I wanted the book to be done so well, Ryan turns around and here I am shirtless, and I think at that point pantsless. I still had my underoos on.
Like, my clothes will not make noise.
I think he was like, I don't think I've ever had a narrator do that.
I was committed,
Ryan. I was committed.
Well, it takes a lot when you're there behind the mic and you have this audio engineer continually critiquing you, and you know, you're only pointing out the negative things. You know, you're not just like, yeah, that was great, that was great, that was great. It was always like, I heard another click again. Be careful while you're moving. Oh, you're getting off axis on the mic. Keep, you know, it's just bedded with negativity.
Right.
Totally. What I loved also as a side note is that you were driven for excellence, but you weren't driven for performance in the way that we were coming about it. So I actually felt the goodness of you being like, you should change this. That happened. I'm like, this is so helpful. This is great. But in the evolution of the characterizations, you know, there was the element of me getting up every morning and even the night before working on certain characters. And then and for
trying to find
30, 40 minutes, like up and down, trying to find the voice. Who is this? I had an idea when I wrote the book of them, but how do I actually extract that? And there were multiple times where I went, don't know, can't get it. I'm going to go show up and be present, and we're going to find it. And so we're in there, and there were some times where...
What was that like for you?
Well, that was amazing too. You know, we touched on this a little bit before. I mean, some of the things that I'm talking about you in our studio time is come prepared. So we put all this pressure on you to say, look, if you're not coming prepared, in essence, I didn't say it this way, I said it professionally, but don't waste my time.
Right, totally. Absolutely.
So the more you can prepare, the less it'll cost you, the less it'll use my time, and this is great. Yeah. So we already set that expectation. And again, I'm getting to see Justin model the response to that, to not get defensive in that, but just to engage in it, and then to come with prepared. I mean, obviously you came in and your voices was trained every morning. It was warmed up. You did everything you could to prepare. But you left space for life to get breathed on the moment, which I know myself, I want to have everything prepared in advance so that I perform, and I don't want to look stupid. You came in naked, literally, and exposed those things. And I think the life came out, and you can hear it. You can hear it in the voices. So there are so many times where, I mean, we'd go through 20 different characterizations trying to make your voice fit and describing who this character was and what they represented and how do we communicate that. And it only could have happened in the moment.
Right. It's so true.
The life happened right there. If it had been planned, I don't think we would have hit the mark.
There were these sparks of genius and where we're like, oh my God, that's it. That's the voice.
Yeah. That's the voice.
And it was so fun in that.
Can you tell me a little bit, there's a couple times that you cried in the process of the audio recording. Tell us.
Both did, interestingly enough.
I want to hear from both of you.
Yeah. Well, we'd get into certain sections. So again, typically the professional side of me is only listening for the technical things. Right. We also have a script supervisor that's usually checking for the narration, make sure there's no reading errors.
Right.
So, and then often you have a director as well, who's trying to capture the performance. So we kind of were filling all those roles. But in this space, because I was partnered in it, it was different. And it wasn't in exchange for money, so it also felt different. So this was, like you said, this was a different type of team thing where it felt like we got rid of all the structures and said, what does it look like for us to produce something that has life on it and let it come together? Yeah, so those places we would come into and I would be listening, trying to critique at the same time and connected with the characterizations. The characterizations would bring things to life because we do a lot of non-dramatized audio.
Yeah.
A lot of self-help books, just informational, and you still want the voice actor to show up. You still need a performance there, all those kind of things.
Yes.
But when you're doing the characterization and you're trying to bring that up, you get sucked in.
So what you're saying is, as you were trying to just think about the details, Justin is so compelling that you got sucked in.
He grabs your heart right there, reaches over and pulls you in.
So if you are trying to figure out if you should get this audiobook or not, you should. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting watching you be so fully present inside of that space. You weren't, like you said, you weren't in Logic space. And so there were many times where I watch you, I look over and there's your tears. You turn around and there's tears in your face. And I thought that was really beautiful, especially considering going from your Logic space to your heart space that you'd been working on.
Well, and I came prepared. I'd read half the book, and I'd read it to my kids, which was great. But then the second half, pretty much, we just, I ran out of time and we were just going to do it. And so it was that part where I didn't come prepared, where it was also new for me, where there was life on this, and we didn't have the voice yet of those things. And then, of course, especially at the end, which we won't give it away, but there's a part where it connects with you and it just all gets exposed, and it exposes your own heart and being a kid and generationally. And that place, and especially with how I know how it connected with my kids and how the characterization specifically kept them captivated. Even my 3-year-old, she doesn't know what's going on with the story.
Totally.
She's engaged, and I couldn't help but believe if it was more than just the voicing that you were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're amazing what you were performed, but there was something else on top of this.
There really was, and that leads to my role of tearing up. There are multiple times that I got choked up because I felt the engagement of heaven. It felt like I was directly sitting down with my papa, my daddy in heaven going, all right, let's create inside of this space together. And I didn't feel like, not only was I not alone in the sense that you were there, Ryan, but I was not alone because I felt like he sat down in the booth with me at moments where I literally got undone, where I had to pause and just hold begin to take the information in that was going on and go, okay, I got to get through this because I'm about to break down. And there was literally a couple of times through moments. Let me back up. It was interesting because I wrote it, but I didn't feel like I was reading my own material. And I felt like I was present with another story. Even as I was reading it and hearing it come out of my mouth, I felt like I was listening to someone read the story. And there was one moment where I almost completely collapsed to the ground. It just overwhelmed with emotion and almost weeping. And it was beautiful because it wasn't just about, again, it wasn't about creating a piece of material. It was about an experience for Justin's heart. And there was an encounter for me that was happening in that space where I felt like my Heavenly Papa was like, hey, buddy, we're doing this together.
It's so interesting because the book is the journey for you of healing. Like, your stories are completely different, but they're the same in that both of you guys shut off from the kid part of you to survive painful things. And then you had to go back and refine the kid part of you and integrate that back into your life. And the kid part of us is also what enables us to do vulnerability and intimacy with other people. If we don't know how to connect to people, it's typically we're disconnected from our own childlike wonder. But it's this beautiful thing of here Ryan is getting reconnected to his emotions. So his capacity, like he'd shut down emotions and was robot, and now he's crying, listening to you, where you're on this journey talking about, you wrote a book about the journey of going back to childlike wonder.
Right.
And then also the process of this book has continually thrown you back into childlike wonder.
Over and over again. I get to keep.
It's like a healing gift to you and to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the book for me, its sole purpose was in me initially. I really just getting to create for myself.
Yeah.
And then I start seeing all these other purposes added onto it and layer upon layer upon layer that's gifted to me.
I think that's why I love like even this moment, because when I see the impact that is happening in your world, you know that there's something bigger than just a book happening here. There's a divine intersection of lives where people, and I love those moments where it can be a very ordinary thing that happens to you in the right timing, can be something that just pivots your life.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
I did want to say this lastly on the childlike stuff. I know that for you, Ryan, I thought it was really beautiful. Part of our journey with you was not only getting you reconnected to that, but then you going back and starting to love that boy previously to 12 years old. If you just for a brief minute, did you want to share like what that was like?
Yeah, just, you spend your entire adult life shutting that kid down.
Yeah.
He doesn't fit. Don't put on the mask. Don't act this way. Don't become your true self.
Yeah.
And so letting him come alive again is a scary place. You have to face these things, and these little windows of the homework that opened up that life, it was so easy to just shut back down. Everything around me, life, pressure, stress, work, all these things are focused on making sure that kid doesn't come out and live. And so this process of stepping through these things and connecting in those parts where, I am tearing up and getting emotional, it's because I'm connecting with me, the true me that wants to come out, that doesn't want to be abused by myself with my own self-talk, that wants to shut him down and say, stop it, you need to fit in and you need to start acting this way. Yeah. And I mean, I'm in that journey. I'm still broken and I'm a mess, and we're on that journey coming out of it, but tasting just a little bit of what it could be like to have that life again is that journey and trajectory that I can't turn away from. And, we're making some drastic changes in our family's life. We're going to take off the next 6 months to a year and make that our focus. And we keep talking about I've said, I want to go find myself and find God. And, someone spoke into me, and a good friend of mine, and just said, it's the finding, it's the process. And of course I want it to be a goal and a destination. Totally. I want to check it off and like I've arrived, and that, I have to be connected with the present and the now. And in that now space right now, can I be fully alive? So that's my journey, is how do I engage in that, to engage in pain. I mean, like you said, you opened up, we've all gone through pain. I'm going through some really difficult things with my family and with my mom's health. And how do you connect into that pain? And I just thought if I could stay safe and shut it all down and control it, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
But if we let this all come out in a mess, all of a sudden I'm out of control.
Yeah.
And I felt like in this next season, like the Father was wanting to give me a comforter to walk me through. So I had this protector of logic and reason, which has served me well. And man, it can get a lot of stuff done. But he was bringing me someone to bring out the creativity, the beauty, because the logic and reason side of things, black and white, nothing's real pretty, just black and white.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you bring the color back into life, creativity, beauty? And that happens through the pain and the emotion. And that's the space that you get connected. That's a space we connected in the present of your book. I don't think we would have been able to connect in that same way had we not taken the risk to say, let's see what happens right now.
Yeah, that's so good, Ryan.
And there's no comfort for logic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because logic is not, it's not an emotion. If you want to experience comfort, you have to be able to connect to logic. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. Ryan, why don't you tell listeners either things that your kids, well, your daughter has a favorite character. First of all, what did your kids, tell me what your kids thought about the book. Let's just start with
so
what that was like reading the book to your kids.
This book is amazing because it spans generations. So I've got a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And we listened to the raw unedited version. And, so there's parts where they'd say, why did you just say that? We haven't edited this yet. So
that's funny.
Anyway, but the kids were just so connected into this space, of course, especially my 9-year-old, but my 6-year-old just loved the adventure and the story. And he loved, the favorite part was I can't give it away.
Yeah, totally.
There's some things that happen that he really, really loved. But my daughter, I asked her, and she just really especially liked Verstand, which is this character. You can probably talk a bit about her, but she just loved the character and what it represented. And there's so many characters in this book that you can connect with. You can connect with each one of them, and you're meant to connect with each one of them. But there's certainly some that you connect with more than others.
Yeah.
And of course, at the beginning, Otis, this crazy squirrel, is who I'm just connecting with right at the beginning, and it just right out the gate, you grabbed my heart in that place of just being the wild adventure. Like, what if I could go and live fully alive? So yeah, my kids are connecting on it. We took several road trips and listened to it while we were driving. And so Verstand was this one that my daughter Brielle really
it's
liked.
so good. Well, we're going to share with you guys a little snippet from Verstand.
Cool.
And Verstand is an eagle owl, and she represents strength and power and truth inside of this, and wisdom. Yeah, very key part of it. And so the portion that we're going to share, there in this story, there's Oki the acorn, and really the story is about this acorn Oki being buried in an apple orchard, and somehow as he breaks through the ground, he is told through a circumstance with Otis that ultimately one day he'll make apples. And so this dream of his life is, all right, one day I'm going to be like these big trees, I'm going to make all these apples. And he doesn't actually have the eyes to see what his actual destiny is, and he doesn't realize that everything he needs is inside of him. All he has to do is learn how to come alive. But in this process, we have this moment where Oki is very fond of Verstand, this eagle owl, and as an acorn, he has an ability to watch her and observe her. And the moment that we're going to share is a moment where Verstand is sitting, feeding her little owlets, and below her is this...
Owlets is a cute word.
Yeah, it is. Below her is this beautiful caterpillar that's just got these radiant colors that transcend past the rainbow all over it, and it's crawling, and she begins to share a nugget of wisdom about this to her to her owlets. And so that's what you guys are about to hear. So we'll be right back to wrap this up in just a minute. Enjoy.
Along Verstan's nest crawled the fattest, hairiest caterpillar Oki had ever seen. But what made the caterpillar stand out was neither its size nor its ungroomed body hair. What made this caterpillar the center of attention was the wondrous orchestra of colors enveloping it. Shades of red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet were present, accompanied by colors Oki had never dreamed of. With every undulation of its body, the colors moved as if they themselves were alive. While the owlets gobbled up their delicious dinner, Verstan stared intently, as if hypnotized by the caterpillar. Without warning, Mama thrust out her wings, demanding the attention of her babies. Frozen stiff, they waited for insight into what was happening. Verstan turned their gaze toward the strangely beautiful guest. With a gentle, yet serious tone, she began to share a story. Each and every caterpillar must crawl, she began. For many, their life seems very limited. They watch the birds of the air and dream of what it would be like to see what we see. Occasionally, they find a tree like this one and get a better view. For the few that climb all the way up here, a holy dissatisfaction takes over their hearts. Something begins to grow deep within them. They know they can't go back to crawling on the ground, but they also can't seem to discover an alternative. Many lose hope and crawl back down the tree, remembering the voices of all those that told them it was a caterpillar's life to crawl. But a few refuse to stop believing, and those few soon find themselves doing something they've never done before. Verstan gazed into her children's innocent eyes. As only a wise mother would, she asked, "What do you think they do, my darlings?" The owlets looked at one another and shrugged their wings. I know, Oki shook up and down on his branch, desperately trying to get Verstan's attention. Verstan grinned proudly at her children. Then she continued. As the caterpillars hang upside down from a branch, all the anticipation and excitement builds up, while dreaming begins to pour out. It creates a cocoon around them. Their world suddenly becomes dark, and for what seems like an eternity, they are left alone, wondering how all their grandiose dreams got them there. As time passes, and all their worries fade away, when they are left only to trust that there is something more, a magnificent breakthrough happens. Light begins to pour in as an unknown force breaks out. Emerging, they find they now have wings, and their real journey begins. With that, the caterpillar with spellbinding colors climbed out onto a branch and began releasing its cocoon. A large smile stretched across Oki's face. It was the most beautiful story he had ever heard. Without warning, a familiar sound disrupted the moment. Crickety-crackety, snippety-snappity! And with that, he began to fall.
Oh my gosh, I love it listening to that so much. I've listened to some things over and over again because there's such a message of hope and purpose in the midst of pain and legacy beyond what we can see, and remembering that our story is unfolding in a bigger story than we understand. Like when we cannot see and we can't understand what's going on in our world. Sorry, my voice cracked. I'm like a teenager in puberty. But when we can't see and understand what's going on in our world, or when things look over, when they look dead, like we haven't seen the full story yet. We haven't seen how all the pieces come together yet. It's just such a hope-filled message, especially for right now, having things that bring us hope and life and reinforce truth that no matter what you've been through, redemption is possible, and there are good things. There's good things coming. It's just it's the right time for this book.
Yeah. So last thing I'll say just to you, Ryan, is thank you so much for being willing to allow me to be part of your story and choosing to be part of my story, because that is something that we get to look back 20, 30 years from now we get to have conversations with your kids. We'll get to look back at like, what did that season do for them? I get to share with you the fruit of this season with me. And I'm just so excited to be able to have that exchange 20, 30 years from now, and watching what happens and evolves all along the way.
And I have one last question and one more full circle thing that I'd like to point out. So this is not the last question, but I guess it's 2 questions now. So what is the full circle thing that happened at the camp that is happening in your life now? Because it feels very pertinent to this journey of bringing that kid back.
Yeah. So part of this journey of us focusing on our family, ourselves, the finding of ourselves, and especially the creative side of both my wife and myself, is to take off this year. And we've got an opportunity that we're going to be able to go back to that camp and spend the next couple months and just springboard from there. We might do an RV for a year and, adventure. I mean, you're homeschooling your kids anyway, pretty much.
Right, totally. Now's the time.
Let's go make an adventure of it. So we've just pared down. We're closing down our studio. We're still going to be doing some things on the side to keep those things going, some of the distribution and audiobook publishing that we're doing. But we're going back to that same camp and literally going back into the places where I lived as a kid and get to experience all that again. So this redemptive thing to go back again in these great memories that I had of so much freedom, to now have my kids join in that space. But now not just as a, hey, we're going to go there and vacation, but I'm still going to be always thinking about work.
Right.
I'm fully present and connected, and work is the space we will spend after I've focused on the things that matter most.
Yeah.
And those things will follow if I keep this focused and we come alive. And that is
so wild. That is so wild that literally the place that you felt most peace as a kid
ended up opening back up.
Just so happened everything unfolded so that you could be there and stay in like a cabin right across from the home that you were in. And like anything, like all redemption. Really, it's about the full circle redemption inside of our lives, especially when we say yes. We don't see these things when we say no. Nope. We have our heart shut down.
If I had been making the decisions that were the logical decisions, the good steward kind of decisions, let's invest in the company, it would have led down a totally different path, and it would have been marked by death. That's the best description of it. This is unknown. There's a lot of risk. We don't know what's happening. We didn't know what was happening until just last week. We're going to be out in a week, but it was this stepping out.
You've been moving out, and then all of a sudden this opened up.
It opens up.
If things don't pan out, it wasn't my fault. But if it goes well, shout my name from the mountaintops.
That's hysterical. Is there any last things you just want to say about the audiobook, since you were a part of the full process? Was there any other things that you experienced or enjoyed or just wanted to share? You don't have to have anything.
Yeah. If you just have the opportunity, I mean, it's a great book, especially if you have kids, to be able to engage with it because it connects you with your kids in the same story. My daughter's still talking about things, and I still have the characterizations in my head coming out with certain things that keep coming out. But it becomes a talking point for your kids. And even as you've written the book, you know that these things are going to get unpacked in the lifetime. I remember what was going on with Vergonia and what she was representing, like, this is what he was trying to communicate. And so it'll just unpack. So those are things that it's the allegory itself is so powerful because even on the surface, it's a fun story.
Yes. Yeah.
Even for a 3-year-old, that's not understanding what's going on.
Totally. Yeah.
The 6-year-old who is, engaged with the adventure of the story, but certainly not, internalizing these things. And my 9-year-old daughter who is very much picking up enough of these things. And then the 60-year-old guy who's going through and just like, I've died to this part of me that was fully alive. So anyway, there's my
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's very layered.
It's a good thing to do to remind yourself to come alive. And if you're in a season where you're like, I need to remember divine coincidences happen. I need to remember, I need to feel like there's something bigger in my life leading me to where I'm supposed to be, even if I can't see it right now. Or if you just want to feel good because there's so much crappy news out there.
Totally.
And be sure to rate it and make sure that the rating for Justin's performance is 5 stars.
Absolutely.
I will say this, just again, a reminder from the beginning of the episode. Amazon. Go to Amazon to pick that up. And the week of August 17th to the 21st, we're making our biggest push, if you guys can, because we're wanting to see it kind of rise up and get some notoriety. And again, don't forget to share about it on social media if you feel connected to the project. Because we're just again wanting to get ultimately at the end of the day.
Get the word out.
I told Ryan I don't care if I ever made another dime off this project ever again. That's not a care inside of me. It's actually the message of liberation that's inside of it that I want to see get out there. So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Woo! Bye now.